はい、皆さんこんにちは、オグマです。忘れられた都市、前回の続きをやっていきたいと思います。ちょっと今目の前にね、この見知らぬ人物っていうのがいて、まだちょっと私話しかけてない人がいたんですね。ということで、まずこの人を話しかけていきましょう。ちょっと今、ミッションの方もね、なんかちょっと行き詰まってる感じなんでね。そう、まだ話してない人いたんですね。エクイティア。確かに初めてかな。あなたのことを教えてほしい。
I take it people are quite direct where you're from. I suppose it's quite charming in its own way. Usually, however, you wouldn't simply march up to a vestal priestess and without due formality or courtesy ask, "What is your story?"
なんかそう、ミコがどうたらなんか言ってた気がするな。すまない、私はどうすればよかったんだろうが。
The proper approach would be to arrange an introduction through a mutual acquaintance in high
いやー、そ
office,
れは。
by which time you would already know how to address me. And then you would find a way to satisfy your curiosity rather more indirectly. But to be honest, I've often thought what an unnecessary formal way to communicate that is. So, let's do it your way. Just keep being yourself and ask whatever you like. It'll be a refreshing change.
はい、非常に話の分かる人でよかったです。どうやってここに？
You know, I'm not entirely sure. But what about you? How did you end up here?
カレンと名乗る若い女性が意識を失っていた私を川から引き上げてくれたと。そう、カレンがそういえばいたね。忘れてたもん。忘れてたよ、カレンのこと。そうだな、イメージが悪いイメージじゃないと思うんだけど、まあね、古めかしい名前ですけど、私がもともといた場所ではそう珍しいわけではないと。まあ古いかどうかもわかんないけどね。
No.
何を言おうとしたんですか？
I apologize. I don't mean to be cryptic. It's just that you've got me thinking. Have you spoken with any of the others about how they arrived here too? I really think you should. Go around and ask them what they remember and see if you notice any patterns.
まあね、わかりました。はい。
Good. Thank you. But please be careful. I just don't want to see what happened to Livia happen to you too.
リビア何が起きた？
Up until a few weeks ago, she was a perfectly productive member of our little community, darning clothes and cutting hair. She was always so chatty, always seeking out newcomers and asking them where they were from and how they wound up here. And then, about a month ago, she suddenly changed. She withdrew, stopped working and became despondent, started muttering to herself. Galerius and I visited her to see how we could help. But she just
今噂のガレリアスが横にいますね。言っちゃった。
called us bloodless shadows and told us we were ignorant of some pattern. Look, it could be unrelated. Perhaps she simply fell ill. Or, as Galerius suggested, the weight of the golden rule was too much for her. But there is a small chance that she learned something, saw a pattern nobody else saw, and then it broke her. I just don't want to see that happen to you. So be careful, will you?
まあ気をつけましょう。まあ分かってる。まあ気をつけます。お、これは。なるほどなるほど。はい。ちょっとこれやってみるか。OK、今すぐ取り掛かります。OK。はい。わかりました。お、新しいあれができましたね。OK。そしたらどうしようか。何をすればいいかな。とりあえずついていけばいいの？ずっとマーカーが消えないけど。これ話しかけてもダメだね。なんでもないです。はい。そしたらどうすればいいかな。まあとりあえずいろいろ話をすればいいのかな。その上でこのエクステリアさんに話しかける感じでしょうかね。この辺の人たちは話せるかな。あなたの助けが必要と出てるが、リビアさん。
Just as the ocean accepts the rivers of all the world, so this place accepts all the souls. but it does not notice the crowds that come.
あなたのこと教えてほしい。
The bloodless shadows wander without flesh or bone. Some crowd the forum, some the house of the ruler of the depths. Others follow their trades, imitating their previous lives.
ちょっと意味がわかりません。すみません。
They never do.
ちょっと待って。ちょっと一回ちょっと出て。ちょっと待って。ちょっと正面から話したい。ちゃんと。
Just as the but it
で、ここから出る方法をしてるか。
there is only a downward path, gloomy with fatal yew trees. It leads through dumb silence to the infernal regions.
助けが必要か。
Help me? You
お、
cannot
そう
help
これこれこ
me.
れ。
I have seen things. A pattern, a terrible pattern. It is better for you if you remain ignorant. Pandora's box must stay
気になるやん。
closed. I'll say no more.
めちゃめちゃ気になるよちょっと。オッケー。ちょっと待っていろいろ聞いてみよ
The bloodless shadows. This is their punishment.
う。同じかな。
Help me.
同じか。
It is
オッケー
better.
あなたが見たという共通点について話してくれないだろうか。
You think you wish to know, but you do not. It is better for you if you remain ignorant.
教えてくれないな。
Pandora's box must stay closed. I'll say no more.
オッケー、わかりました。
The newly arrived.
はいはい、ちょっと待ってね。これか、パンドラの箱。これだな。ちょっとこれできるかな。なんかいやでもあんまないな。どうすればいいんだろう。まあとりあえずいろいろ話聞くしかないかな。ちょっとわからないことが多すぎるな。ディキューさんも話してくれないかな。はい、ディキューさんもいいや。ガリレウスダメ。この辺もダメかな。いけるな。ガリレウスはもうじゃあもうここはいいや。
I love your
トラ
clothes.
ティウスはダメ。
If
ここは
What if she's
ダ
out
メ
there
か。
somewhere
ちょっと話せる人があんまいないですね。
You,
困ったな。
cannot catch the drums of
とりあえずもうちょっと話してみるか。ちょっともっと話しかけられそうだな。ちょっと待って、ここから出る方法
I
は
don't, I'm afraid. It seems to me we're exiled here until the gods judge us, one way or another.
黄金律については
I'm quite sure it's the work of the gods, which is strange because they've never been particularly concerned with our misdeeds, as long as we've kept the peace of the gods. We asked for blessings, for good health, bountiful harvest, military victory, and in return, we offer praise, wine, incense, or animals. But here, it seems they require much more of us. I find myself reminded of an especially pertinent tale from our great poet Ovid in his epic Metamorphoses. Would you like to hear it? It is rather long.
まあじゃあ話してください。
Wonderful. It goes like this. Baucis and Philemon were an old married couple living a humble life in a small town. One night, the town gets a visit from a couple of vagrants. They go from door to door, asking for a place to stay the night. Of course, being vagrants, they're turned away sharply from house after house, 1,000 in all, until finally they come to the little cottage where Baucis and Philemon lived. Now the kind old couple had very little to offer, but nevertheless, they invite these strangers into their house and offer them food, wine, and a place to stay. Immediately the guests make themselves at home. They begin gulping down the old couple's wine, so much so that Baucis, the old lady, begins to worry they're going to run out. And then she notices something strange. Her wine pitcher keeps refilling itself, as if by magic. Realizing only a select few possess such powers, says to her husband, Philemon, "I think these men are gods in disguise." Immediately the couple begins apologizing for offering such coarse wine. and the vagrants metamorphosize and reveal themselves to be Jupiter, the king of the gods, and Mercury, the trickster god. They confide they didn't mind the meager offerings. They were just pleased that someone in the town offered them hospitality. Then Jupiter says to them, "You have passed our test, but everyone else in this city failed. So we are going to destroy this place and everyone in it, except you, who we will grant a wish." So old Baucis and Philemon escape up into the mountains safely, and they receive their wish, which is for eternity together. Meanwhile, Jupiter carries through with his threat and wipes that city off the map. Some say the moral of that story is that we must all honor the sacred rituals of guest friendship, the reciprocal obligations owed between hosts and guests. But I like to think it's that we should always show compassion for those less fortunate than ourselves.
なるほど。こっちはなんだ。あるいはおそらく神々の試練に失敗した瞬間、彼らは命を奪う。そして、彼らはその規則が一体何なのかを伝える必要すらない。なるほど。いや、私賛成でいいかな。
I'm pleased to hear it.
はい。選挙の状況は
It must be completed by dusk, just the same as any other
そう
official
今日選挙なんだよね、そうい
business.
えば
It'll
ね。
be between
そういえば。
Sentius, the incumbent, and Malleolus, the challenger. Why do you ask?
そう、ガリレオスのあれがあったのそういえばな。ちょっとガリレオス指名したらどうなる
I like the idea,
お
but
マ
I
ジか
know Galerius well, and his position has always been that he won't run unless Malleolus
そうなんだ。
withdraws. It was only yesterday that he said to me he'd only ever run if it was absolutely necessary to make sure Sentius wasn't re-elected. So, I suppose if you'd like to see Galerius elected magistrate, you'd need to
それ
persuade
どうか
Malleolus
な
to withdraw somehow.
なるほど。誰が投票できる
All of the male citizens who are willing and able to attend, unless they're running, of course.
私もできます
Well, you're not a
ダメです
citizen
か
yet.
そうっすか。
No, I'm afraid not. But if it's any consolation, there are other ways to influence the outcome of an election.
例えば
By using whatever gifts the gods gave you.
あ
Nothing untoward, of course.
OK。選挙でのあなたの役割は
I'm responsible for announcing it and making sure the procedures are followed.
他の候補者を指名できるか
You can, assuming they're eligible and willing to accept the nomination.
今すぐできるんですか
As I said, I'm planning to hold it
まあそうだよ
before
ね
dusk. But I suppose I
お、なんだ
could hold it sooner, if there's a good reason.
いやでもねそうだな。いやでもちょっととりあえず一旦やめるか。
As you wish.
はい一旦やめてちょっと待ってガレリウスをそういえばなんかミッションあった気がするな。ここにたどり着いた経緯をみんなに聞いた。
And did you notice anything? A pattern?
共通点ね何かがコインについて話してた。
Yes. I suppose that could be something. But then most of us do tend to carry coins on our person, don't we? What else?
はいはい。何人かが川について話していた。
Yes. I understand many of our friends were carried here by a river current. What else?
何人かが部分的に記憶が欠けていると話してた。
That's true. I
あ、
know
全部で
I
きちゃう
wasn't
ね。
entirely sure how I
なんだ
wound
かん
up
だでみん
here.
なに話したしね。
It's as I feared.
お、
I think I understand what poor Livia has been going through. You mentioned earlier. You met a young woman in the forest named Karen. Yes,
なんか話が進んでる。その通りだ。
I see. And
どうだったっけ
was this Karen
え
by any chance wearing a
い
hood?
や、どうだったっけこれしかないか。
Because I've seen
覚えて
her
ない。
before. There's something I think you should see. I think you'd
え
better follow
浴
me
場ま
to
で
the
行く
baths.
のわかった。行こ
But don't follow too closely.
う。はいは
We
い。
can't have
わかり
people
ました。
thinking we're bathing
はい
together.
了解しました。じゃあついていきます。はい、いや、追いかければいいか。はい。いや、話が進みましたね。 お、動けない。なんだ、どうした。まあいいか、行っていい。あ、オッケー、はい、じゃあ行きましょう。よし。さあ。さあさあ、あんまりね、近寄っちゃってまずいかな。まあでも、ここ誰もいないだろうな、でもな。まあまあまあ。行きましょう、行きましょう。さあさあと思ったね。よし。さあさあ。
All right, you're here. You were asking how I knew the young woman you met by the river was wearing a hood. Here, look down at the bottom of the baths. It's a little hard to make out in this light. If only we could see.
Oh.
Oh, what a marvelous lamp. But do you see it? Somebody waking up by a river in a forest to find a hooded figure with a coin. It's just as you described it, only your pronunciation is a little off. The name you heard wasn't Karen. It was Charon, as in Charon, the ferryman of the dead. Charon, who, in exchange for the right coin, helps the souls of the newly deceased cross the Styx, the river that separates the land of the living from the land of the dead.
When I dragged you out of the river, I thought you were never gonna wake up. I checked your pockets for ID, but all I found was some loose change. Feels like I've spent my whole life in a dead-end job with an endless commute. Sorry if I sounded cagey, it's just that I don't always get the best reactions when I introduce myself. My name's Karen.
わかるんで聞こえるわ。
Bunch of old stories about the gods punishing people by making them do the same futile task over and over. But on the bright side, at least you're not stuck in the underworld like they all were.
I'm so sorry, my friend. I'm so sorry. I take it you know what this means.
ね、ここは冥界なのか。
I'm afraid so.
おいおいおいおい。
It's all starting to make sense. All these people whose last memory was running from the fires toward the river. It seems none of them escaped with their lives after all. Perhaps we should be grateful they don't remember their final moments. It also tells us that the Golden Rule is the work of Pluto, the god of the underworld, and why his epithet has always been Father of Riches. I know it's a lot to take in, and you look as if you have questions, so
いや、ちょっと
I'll try to answer them if I can.
突然の展開で。まあ要するに私たちは死んでるってことです
That
か。
was my first thought too. In the old stories, the underworld was where the souls of the deceased were taken. But it was also possible for the living to reach it without dying, if they were particularly fearless.
わからない。
So I'm afraid I don't know.
カロについて。
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting you're not from here. If you were Roman, or even Greek, you would know these stories. Each of them is slightly different, whether the storyteller was Plato, Homer, Virgil, or Ovid. But they always involved the souls of the dead meeting a grim ferryman named Charon on the bank of a river. It was said that he'd help the new arrival cross, only if they could pay him with a coin, an obol. That's why it was once our custom to bury our loved ones with a coin in their mouths. Charon's obol, we called it. Of course, an obol was a kind of Greek coin, because we inherited this knowledge from the Greeks.
なぜみんなカロンだとすぐに分からなかった？
To be fair, the ferryman isn't exactly as the poets described, and he, she, they seem to appear to different people in different guises. You say you saw a young woman named Karen with a hood, and I once heard Kabash mention a stranger in a ram headdress named Kerti, and Rufius described meeting a stranger named Kamut Tabal wearing an eagle headdress. But whatever form this stranger took, they were always wearing a hood of some sort, and their name always began with a K sound. I suspect the only way you'll solve this riddle is if your paths cross again.
はいはいはい。冥界にはどんな、ごめんなさい。冥界にはなぜこんなに人が少ない？
Good question. Let's see. In the stories, Charon would always require a coin as payment for passage across the river. But that never made any sense to me. What does an ancient immortal being need with coins? In our case, it seems Charon didn't take the coins we had. He or she merely checked we had one in our possession. So, maybe there's something special about the coins each of us had on us. That might explain why we wound up here, but so many others did not.
はい、あなたはこのことを私に隠そうとしてたんですか？
No. I mean, I had my suspicions, especially after Livia's ramblings, but I would never have figured it out without your help. I promise you.
OK。まあこんなもんですか？
Now that we know where we are, we have to figure out what to do about it.
ああ、マジかよ。マジかよ。
We don't have much to go on, except the old stories. I remember 4 in particular about heroes in the underworld. Hercules, the demigod and son of Jupiter. Orpheus, a Thracian poet. Sisyphus, a king of Ephyra. And Aeneas, a Trojan hero. Hercules was able to leave the underworld because he cowed its god with his strength. Sisyphus and Orpheus both relied on their wits instead. They persuaded the goddess of the underworld, Proserpina, to help them escape. And finally, Aeneas was able to escape with the help of a spirit
これが一番無難か、
who
秘
led
密
him
の
through
門。
a secret gate. So it seems you have 2 options: to confront the god of the underworld head on, or find a way to escape with the help of Proserpina.
まあ正面から向かってないと。そうだな。入ってきた道を通って抜けれないんですか？
It's a reasonable question, but the problem is, this place is fairly well designed to keep us here. There's no way to climb up the shaft. And even if you could build a ladder big enough, just trying it would break the golden rule. We know that, thanks to the writings left behind by those who've tried.
冥界の神を名前で呼ぶことに抵抗があるようだがどうして？
All Romans try to avoid saying it, and the reason is quite simple. He might hear us. You may refer to him as Pluto, if you wish, but you'll only be calling attention to yourself. Do so at your own peril.
プルートに立ち向かうことについて詳しく教えてほしい。
Shh! Is everyone so blunt where you're from?
すいません。
That option
まあ
would
確
be
かにね、
the
大胆
wisest,
っていうか。
but also the only way to learn the truth about the golden rule, and maybe even put an end to it. As I said, Hercules managed to overpower the god of the underworld, but he was a demigod. Forgive my
そうですね。
candor, but you are no
まあ立ち向
Hercules.
かうのは無理だろうな。そうだな。ヘラクレスは時間を操ることも生き物を黄金に変えることもできなかった。
Are you telling me that you can?
黄金に変えることは
I
ね
won't pretend to understand exactly what that means, but if that's true, then perhaps you
弓
stand
が
a
あるんで。
chance. So, if you want to confront him, I'll
本
help
当
you
に
as much as I can.
あるいはこの方法かもしれないな。
Perhaps your name will be uttered in the same sentence as Hercules one day. But first, you'd need an audience with you-know-who, and for that, you'll need to enter the great temple overlooking the city. The problem is, the door has been sealed shut for as long as I've lived here, and there doesn't even seem to be a keyhole. I suspect the answer lies in the desecrated obelisk in front of it. I'm not sure if you noticed, but there are 4 plaques missing from its base. It looks as though somebody, or a series of somebodies, forcibly removed them, and in doing so, dishonored and angered our divine keeper. If you could recover and replace all 4 of those missing plaques, I imagine he might be willing to receive an audience again.
オベリスクについて。
It's the towering stone monument with 4 sides and a pyramid-shaped head that stands before the great temple, a dedication to the god of this place. You'll find them all over Rome, but of course they were looted from Egypt many years ago. It seems one of them made its way here too, although how is a mystery. However, this one is unusual in that each of the 4 sides is decorated in a different style: Roman, Greek, Egyptian, and another I don't recognize. That means you'll need to recover 4 different plaques: Roman, Greek, Egyptian, and a 4th, a mystery plaque.
マジかよ。ちょっとまた新しい靴来ちゃったな。もういろいろ聞くのか。とりあえずローマの名盤どこで見つけられるんですか？
Good question. To answer that, we first need to ask who would have defaced the obelisk in the first place.
あ、ルフィ
It
ですか。
had the god's name engraved into it, so it may be that whoever desecrated it wanted that name to be forgotten. And there's only one group of people I know of who might want to do that. There's a cult in Rome that often argued there is only one true god. Theirs, of course. They've been known to start fires, as well as deface religious monuments whose existence challenged their beliefs. If I were you, I'd go looking for them. Of course, they've all been in hiding since the fire last year, so finding them won't be easy. But I did hear a rumor they have a secret shrine somewhere in the city. Perhaps, if you could find that, you might be able to recover the Roman plaque.
じゃあギリシャの名盤ね。
I don't know. But perhaps you should begin your search with the
Georgius.
local Greek fellow, Georgius. His store is in the forum.
あ、ドゥリーもそうか。なるほど。じゃあエジプトは？
Perhaps Kabash, our Egyptian resident, would be able to tell
カバ
us.
シュ。
Unfortunately, he disappeared weeks ago. But I did hear Aurelia is peddling rumors about him at the tavern. So
あ
perhaps
あ、ア
you
ウレ
could
リア
talk
ね。
to her. Or just take a look in his room.
はいはいはい。オッケー。で、謎の名盤は？
I'm afraid you're on your own with
まあ
that
そうだよな。
one. But
わかりまし
perhaps
た。
finding the other three will illuminate the way.
これは最後か。オッケー、わかりました。なるほど、やるべきことが増えたな。これも聞いてみるか。プロセルピナや他の導きを得て脱出する方法について、詳しく教えてほしい。
As I mentioned, both Orpheus and Sisyphus were said to have persuaded Proserpina to help them escape, and Aeneas was guided to the exit. The problem is, those are the stories of a poet, a self-aggrandizing king, and a brawler about their own heroic deeds, so they should be taken with a grain of salt. First, Proserpina. What we do know about her is, well, it's a grim tale. It's said the god of the underworld abducted and dragged her here against her will, forcing her into marriage.
つまり彼女は私たちを助けるために彼に対抗する気があるかもしれないと。
If the stories are true, then I suppose so. The problem is, how do we communicate with her without being noticed by her captor? Leaving that aside for a moment, there is also the possibility of a spirit guide. I don't suppose you've come across one of those in your travels?
時折女性の像が私にささやきかける声を聞く。
Truly? And you're only bringing this up now? Then again, I suppose you were worried I'd think you were as mad as Navia. Can you tell me more? Is it the same voice? What kinds of thing does it say?
いつも同じ声だと。少し謎めいているが役立つ助言をしてくれることもある。
Fascinating. Perhaps she's a benevolent spirit. Or perhaps... Perhaps you're hearing the voice of Proserpina herself. If she has indeed been abducted, it would make sense for her to speak in cryptic whispers to avoid detection. Tell me, has she told you anything that might lead you to the way out?
はっきりしたことはね、なんかないんですよね。おそらく彼女は流れに逆らって歩いて、彼女の涙は街を貫き流れる。彼女は水の流れる場所で泣いていると言ってた。
That is strange. There are no rivers here. Let me think on that.
そうだな。まあ、ちょっと意見を聞かせてもらった方がいいんだろうか。まあ、ちょっと順番に行くか。どうにかして上層のシスターンに行く必要があるだろう。
Right, because the current flows into the city through the aqueduct and into the upper cistern. I vaguely recall wondering what was in there, but the door at the back of the great temple is locked up tight. You might be able to get a key from the magistrate. But if that doesn't work, perhaps you can find another way in. Let me know if you find anything in there.
なるほど。OK。まあいろいろ始める準備はできてますと。
Alright.
やりましょう。
I would suggest not discussing this with anyone. The best we can do for them is to let them remain oblivious for as long as possible. As for Livia, It seems she's been shouldering the weight of this terrible secret all this time. Perhaps it would comfort her to know she's not alone.
ちょっと待って、やることが多すぎて、まずリビアじゃない？ちょっと。
In any case, time is of the
そうですね。
essence.
OK、わかりました。
Let's begin. May Fortuna guide you. Although you may not need her with Proserpina on your side.
はい、OK。ちょっと衝撃の展開でございましたね。じゃあ、ちょっとまずリビアと話すことから始める感じかな。いろいろミッション出たよね。それで今これやってる感じか。ローマの名盤とかにいろいろあるけど、じゃあ次回まずこれをやる感じか。いや、一気に話が進んだ気がしますね。早いな。ちょっとはい、ではね、今回はとりあえずこれで終わりましょう。次回のところまでおさらば。